conversation, but a strong one, to talk to people about the things that we didn't learn about money growing up in school. Because how many of you were taught the same formula that most of us were? Go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a good job, live happily ever after. Everybody said that, right?
Yes.
And for all of the people that were told those things, how many of you just found yourself in a place, right? How many of you just found yourselves in a place where the things that you knew weren't enough to get you the things that you wanted? Meaning, in terms of income, most of us ended up with training that taught us to get a job, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
But how many of us also heard the words that money is a tool and therefore it should do work?
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's what we're going to talk about tonight, is finding ways to put your money to work by understanding something different and doing something different about it. And I have the pleasure of just, by way of background, because I think about it. Most of you may not know me. My name's Richard Hardon, and I did the things they said to do. And over time, found myself just frustrated, not able to get enough money left to have to invest. And the investments that I had were so far off into the future that I couldn't get the money that I was investing to do work for me right now. Does anybody relate to that situation?
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, I found myself out of control of the information without the type of advisors to give me a game plan to do the things that I needed to do. So as a financial educator, I want to do a couple of things up front, is just to help with mindset and understand why in this economy, investing is more critical than it's ever been. Meaning right now, how many of you agree 2020 is not the year that we were saying Happy New Year about?
No.
Right.
I mean, I know there are some of you that said, you know, this version has a virus. I want to uninstall and reinstall it. But the reality of our situation is it's not all bleak. We just got to understand how to get our financial house in order. And with our process, through the things that we do in income shifting, we just got to understand that really right now, where we are in the world is unprecedented, right? Meaning right now, looking across the numbers, 30 million people filed for unemployment benefits the last 6 weeks. As a matter of fact, last 3 people I talked to had suddenly got let go from their jobs. And they say that 6 years it takes to recover from the loss of a job. And 1 out of 4 small businesses will never open. But this is one of the metrics that I saw as condemnation of our American education system. Meaning, if you look across the US Census Bureau, they say that for 100 people that start working at age 25, by the age of 65, 1% will be considered wealthy, 4% will have enough money for retirement, 3% will still be working, 63% will be dependent on family, friends, and the federal government, and 29% are dead. And the most condemning statistic right there, you add those up, that's 92%. 92% dead or dead broke, noting that it's suddenly become our responsibility to invest for our future while at the same time using the money that we have to take care of our current lifestyle. Now, I'm not doom and gloom. I'm here to say that we just got to understand what challenges our money: inflation, taxes, debt, and big business. See, for most people, if you ever wonder where your money went, because people I see all the time say, I want to invest, but by the time I pay my bills, I don't have any money left. So we're going to talk about strategies and solutions today. Number one, to make sure that you have money left to invest. But number two, more importantly, to make sure that when you invest, your money is making more money so that it can eventually replace you at work. Now, for those of you that have attended a previous income shifting conversation, the 3 things that we have to do: we got to increase your cash flow, increase your business, create a business income, and then build investment income, and understanding that cash flow is king. Write this down in your notes. If you're not taking notes, start taking notes. The note is your income is making somebody wealthy. You just got to decide on who it is. So the 3 things that we do when it comes to increasing cash flow is, first, understanding the tax bracket. If the only source of income you have is a job, 28 to 33% of it is gone off the top. So the first thing we got to do is got to minimize taxes, minimize expenses, minimize debt, and increase your credit score so we can get your cash flow back. Am I making sense? Now, the
Yes.
second thing that we have to do, build a business income for two reasons. One, it lets you become tax efficient, meaning you get to write off a part of your lifestyle and create significant additional income. And then the third step, because making money is taxed less than anything in America, we got to put you in a place where you're able to earn capital gains, to acquire real assets. And the most important thing you can ever invest in, write this down, is you. Tap yourself on the chest. It's me. You are your number one asset. And today we're going to talk about cash flow as a concept. Now, Patricia, you and I were hanging out last night, but this is one of the things that I want to make sure that people understand in our WealthMax equation is that you are a business, whether you know it or not.
Right.
Matter of fact, put that in notes. You should start looking at your money through what we call a cash flow statement. Now, there's 4 categories of things when it comes to cash flow: income, expenses, liabilities, and assets. Income is just what it sounds like. It's money coming in. For most people, what's the source of money coming in?
Job.
It's their job. And then expenses are things that go out the door to someone else. And then liabilities, just to make it simple. Liabilities take money out of your pocket. Assets put money in your pocket, okay? So when we think about the expenses that we have to minimize for people, what are the top 2 expenses you think that most people have?
Mortgage or rent.
Well, matter of fact, let me cheat for you. Top 2 are taxes and interest.
True.
So interest is mortgage and rent. Does that make sense? But then food, transportation, everything that goes out the door, that's what expenses are. And then in terms of liabilities, most Americans have several liabilities in common. Mortgage is one of them. That's what you said already. Anybody else have some? Cheat ahead again. Your home, car, student loans, credit cards, all of those things have interest that increases cost, takes money out of the pocket. Making sense so far? Now, if we had a set of strategies that could help us lower taxes and lower interest, that starts to give you cash flow back to do something different. Now, by the way, I know people will always wrinkle their eyebrows when I say that your home is a liability. But let me ask you a question. Unless you got a business in your home, how much money does your home make you?
Zero.
Therefore, your home is a liability. It takes money out of your pocket. Your bank will tell you your home is your biggest asset, but it's the biggest asset that they have. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, on the asset side, here's some things we can invest in: stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate that is income producing, and a business. All of those are assets. And those are the places where we can invest to create money that comes to us from a thing that we do. And that's our simple strategy for income shifting, is we take our existing cash, we buy, build, or create an asset, and that creates more cash. Cash, asset, cash. Everybody good? And just to simplify the equation, reference Rich Dad, Poor Dad, cash flow quadrant to understand your cash flow and what you need to do. When I read this book, it made me understand a couple of things. He said on the left-hand side, that's the cash flow of a poor person. All the money that they get goes out the door through the expense column. In the middle, the cash flow statement of the middle class, that's why they're in the middle. Income goes in, goes out through their mortgage, car note, student loans, and credit cards. And for the wealthy, their assets create more income than they need to live. So the goal is to get from here to here. But anybody ever struggle? Like you find out something exciting and ask yourself, how do I get from here to there?
Mm-hmm.
I know I did. I know that as soon as I knew that there were different investments and things possible, I started trying to do everything at once. I was trying to get out of debt by paying $100 extra to all my bills. I was trying to invest in real estate and get more money in my 401k and try to do some stock day trading on the side. Anybody ever get schizophrenic trying to figure it out by themselves?
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, here's what we got to understand. It's a process. Write that in your notes. It's a process. What got you to where you are financially today didn't start here, and it won't end here. I was taught a process actually by a gentleman I'm about to introduce you to. He said, you got to take it a step at a time and get your financial house in order. Everybody write that in your notes. Get your financial house in order. And the foundation of it is mindset, education, a game plan, and a team. Put that down in your notes. You need education. If everything you know got you where you are, don't you think you need to know something else?
Yes.
But beyond knowing, having a game plan, having a formula for what move to make next, and most importantly, getting a team. Michael Jordan was a superstar by himself, but he was not a champion. Once you put a team around him, championship factory. Same thing for us in our lives, trying to do it by yourself. Everybody point to yourself if you try to do it all by yourself. And that's a challenge because everybody else was teamed up against you and you were all by yourself. Second thing, you got to have a written budget. You got to know where your money's coming from, where it's going, and begin a process of living off less than you make. At least 20% needs to be allocated to other places in your cost of living. If you're using 100% of your money, you don't have anything to invest. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Next step, get a mini emergency fund. Like if you think about this, if you start investing and you got an investment that's got great returns, but you have an emergency and you can't handle it, what are you going to do?
Credit card.
You're going to either hit a credit card or the worst thing is sacrifice the growth in the investment. But then get out of debt. For most people, if you got any amount of credit card debt, there is very little that you can invest in the market that will outpace how much a credit card is borrowing from you. Build a true emergency fund, and then that's when we have the house in order with solid walls to invest for long-term, knowing income is the outcome, but going beyond that so that you have wealth to give. Now, I didn't make that up. I actually learned that. I learned it and applied it just to evaluate where I was in terms of steps based on having a team of financial experts. Everybody put that down. You need experts in your life.
Need experts.
I mean, think about it. If you went to college, like I did, I went to Duke University, I majored in electrical engineering. I had 4 years of intensified study in what? Computer science and electrical engineering. When I graduated from college, what was I trained to be? A computer scientist or an electrical engineer. But I was put into the money game where now I had to defend my income against taxes, debt, inflation, and big business, and nobody taught me how to fight that fight. Well, in our partnership with Make Wealth Real Financial, and just tuck this away in the back of your mind for the information you're about to get, where we have a comprehensive financial aid membership to provide a team of experts in each of the areas where we face challenges on a daily basis, where WealthMax helps us set up our tax strategy ahead of time so that we get to be tax efficient. CreditMax helps boost credit scores, and between Equity Max items, we get people out of debt and get their bills lower. Now, the goal of all those things is to get your money back in your pocket. Everybody say, I want my money. It's mine. It's mine. But once you've got your money, it's time to put that money to work. And too often, many people struggle when it comes to their wealth creation strategy because that's something we weren't taught either. Most of the lessons I learned about money, I learned from the bank. And you know what the bank was giving me in return for my money?
Nada.
Less than 1%. Less than 1% on any class of product that you could walk into a bank and get. And even in my 401k, I had investments in things that I'd been investing in for years that couldn't produce the results that came from having an organized strategy for accumulating wealth. And I would sit here and try to tell you that I'm the expert, that I figured all this out on my own. I'm not. I asked for help. Anybody ever need some help? See, when you're intelligent and you know you need professional help, it makes sense to call for help. So I put all of my pieces together, worked through that process of understanding cash flow that our team of experts provides at Making Wealth Real, and I made one of the calls that changed my life. Now, we've had dozens of calls since then. Just thinking about what's the next best move as my situation changes. Because how many of you know once you start to make different decisions, you get different results and you get to make new different decisions. And an expert that does this all day can help you more than you can figure out on your own.
Absolutely.
So I'm not going to hold him back from you any longer. For those of you that haven't met him yet, Eric Elam is easily one of the best kept secrets in Make Wealth Real Financial. He's one of the leading instructors in our Financial Edge University But beyond that, he's a trained fiduciary agent. So just spending time with Eric without access to the membership could easily cost you $50 to $100 an hour. But we happen to have him on our Wealth Building Wednesday, WealthMax Wednesday call. So wherever you are, I want you to stand to your virtual feet, give that virtual warm welcome. This is our universal sign language for applause. Help me welcome Eric Elam. Eric, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
There you are, loud and clear, sir.
Awesome. How are you guys doing?
Man, fantastic.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, well, I'm glad we were able to get here and get all started going with everything. What I'm really excited about sharing with you guys is just a little bit about what it is that we've done for people today and what it is we've been able to help so many people with, and some of the things that you guys are all probably having questions about, which are private reserve accounts, land banking, and some of those kinds of things. So we're definitely excited to be able to help you with those guys. Back here. So guys, please be conscious of your mics as we go through this. What I want to do, guys, is just re-emphasize exactly what Richard talked about. The number one thing we all need to be able to do is get that financial house in order. I have people lots of times call me where they're still working on step one and they're trying to put the roof on, right? We got to get those walls up. We got to fill up that house where we get the basic financial situation in place. And like one of the biggest things I talk to people about all the time is, look, what's the interest rate on your credit card? 15, 18, 29%? Would you like a guaranteed 29% rate of return? Let's get rid of that. And in some cases, on a case-by-case basis, it may make sense for you to take some of your investments and pay off some of those debts. Even with the costs, fees, and taxes involved, in some situations, it makes sense for you guys to be able to do that. And we take a look at that on a case-by-case basis saying, hey, look, in your situation, this works. But here is the biggest thing about that, right? Step 2 in that house was a written budget. And I can't tell you how often I sit down with people who have great incomes, no kids, $7,000, $8,000 plus a month of income, and 100% of it's gone every single month. And they can't even tell me where it goes. I send them to go write down a budget. They come back and they say, I spend $4,000 a month. And I say, great, you have an extra $4,000 in your bank account then, don't you? And they're like, well, no, I don't, right? Where's that hole in your boat? And we've got to go find that hole in the boat, because so often when we find that hole, we can instantly free up $1,000 to even $3,000. Or maybe in your case, it might be $500. But even $500 would be able to make a big difference. Yeah, there's Yaz saying that was me, right? That's something I've been working with Yaz for probably a year now, making her get her life in order. And she's got some incredible things cranking for her right now, right? We've got her started. We've got her on the path, and she's been able to do a lot of those things, right? People making great incomes, even if whatever your income is, you have to leverage it, right? We've got to find a way to make it do what you need to do so that we can get that mini emergency fund, eventually get a real emergency fund, and start building wealth for the future. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Now, we talk all about, most of us know about the IRAs and the 401ks and all these other things that we get from work and from our employers. And we're all putting money in it, and it's just because we know it's what we're supposed to do. And that we get that free money, that match. But if you're broke every month and you have no money left over at the end of the month, you don't have any money to put into a 401k. You don't have any money to invest. So I tell you, don't take the free money, quit putting money on a credit card, because if you had no 401k and no credit card debt, would you borrow 10 grand on your credit card to put money in your 401k? The answer is always no, because there's no way I could borrow money at 18% to put it into a place where I couldn't touch it for a long time, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is the ability to take out some money out of your 401k. Specifically this year, you mentioned coronavirus. We're going to come back to that. That coronavirus option is one of the reasons why I talk to people about debt right now. There are some liquidity and some options, but we're not, to pay off credit cards. That is an option. Again, I take it by a case-by-case basis. It's not a 100% of the time take money out of your 401k and throw it into your credit cards, but I'll tell you, I've helped a lot of people do that. I sat down with somebody earlier today. We took $20,000 out of their 401k and we paid off $20,000 in credit card debt. But the reason we did it is because it freed up $1,500 a month in cash flow. And before we took that money out, we said, before you can do this, you have to have a written budget. So when you have $1,500 a month of cash flow back in your life, you don't find a way to accidentally spend it. that we have a plan for that debt. Because if you just take money out of a 401k and you pay off debt and you don't put a plan in place, right, that plan and that mindset in place, you're just going to get in the exact same place that you were before. We want to make sure you've got that plan in place and that you're doing it wisely. And that's something we can help you guys take a look at. So what I really want to do though, guys, is focus on the WealthMax and what are these steps and tools we're going to do once you get to that point where you've got that mini emergency fund. Maybe you've got that emergency fund in place. Now, maybe you're not quite there, but you already have large IRAs and 401ks. You've already got $40,000 or $50,000. Maybe you're 10 years from retirement and you're going, I need to make sure I've got something in order with what I already have, even though I don't have this other stuff in order. And maybe there's a way to shift all that money around, reallocate those assets to put you in a position where you're ready to go right now. And that's something we'd love to help you with, guys. But again, always making sure that you guys know your situation. Know what your cash flow is. Where's my money coming in? How much is going out? Is there anything left over? What are my liabilities? What are my assets? And then we'll be able to take a look at that overall portfolio and change you from one situation to the middle class to the wealth creation. And there's different ways we can do that. Like Evelyn's obviously been talking here. There's a great opportunity to take money out of the 401k if it makes sense for your situation and pay off some debt that's charging you 29%, because I guarantee your 401ks aren't earning you 29%. And we're going to talk about taxes. Taxes is another really big problem that so many people are facing right now. Right? This is one of the big conversations we have with Richard, and his brother Chuck. We've been talking with a lot of people on here. I see a lot of people we're talking to, right? Taxes, kind of a crazy thing. I mean, I'm looking at all your guys' screens. I know most of you are muted. I want you to do, if you think taxes are going to be higher in the future, point up. If you think taxes are going to be lower in the future, point down. Higher or lower, guys? What do you think?
Higher.
Right, lots of higher, right? Kind of crazy situation we're in right now. Taxes are actually at an all-time low, and the lowest they've been in almost 80 years. Taxes are, set to go higher. As a matter of fact, it's already written into law they will go higher January 1st, 2026. Most people have a 3 to 9% tax rate increase in 2026 because the Trump tax cuts will expire and we'll go back to our old tax system. All that has to happen for taxes to go up is for Congress to do nothing. Is Congress pretty good at doing nothing? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They really are. And so most of us are going to have a tax rate increase. The problem is, what if Congress actually does something? Right? Social Security is running out of money. Medicare is running out of money. The national debt is skyrocketing. We're spending more and more money on coronavirus. We want to pay for college and a million other things. Where's the government going to get all that money? The only place for taxes to go is up. Right? And so if taxes are going to be higher in the future, we want to make sure that we can limit those effects on taxes, those tax shifting strategies. They talk about being able to reset up your deductions right now, being able to get that instant pay raise. Also being able to shift over into hard assets where you can do investment income because that's the lowest tax rates possible. But even better is if you can be in a tax-free investment and be in a place where you get to retirement and you have a 0% tax bracket. And there are ways to do that, even if you have IRAs and 401ks. Taking advantage of these tax shifting strategies over the next few years, and especially this year with coronavirus, there are some major options available that we want to make sure that everyone is aware of and takes advantage of. So since we're talking about taxes, I really want to start by talking about the private reserve account first, because the private reserve account is one of those tools that allows us to save money tax-free. Now, a lot of people ask me, how is that possible? This private reserve account, many of you have maybe seen the 2-minute video. If not, I'm actually going to share it with you right now because I believe that this is one of the strongest ways to understand the basics about what the private reserve account does, as well as a great way to share the message. You don't have to explain all the details of the private reserve account. All you have to do is share this 2-minute video with somebody else, right? And if they want to know more, of course they're going to want to know more. Having questions is what brings them here to be able to hear from the experts and understand a little bit more how it works. But I want to start off with this 2-minute video for those of you who haven't seen it, and even those of you who have. It talks about becoming your own bank. And we've been talking a lot about banks here, how banks are paying us next to nothing % on our money. And yet they're taking our money and they're lending it back to us on credit cards at 29%. And they're keeping all that money in the middle for themselves. So what we want to be able to do is share with them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen right here. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Oop, I got to share it differently. Hold up. Let me stop that share and share it so you guys can hear my audio. There we go. Share my computer sound. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to share a little bit of on YouTube right here, right? MWR Financial, you can go take a look right here. You've got all these videos. Right here is a 2-minute video on the private reserve account. So we're going to start off, and I'm going to share this with you guys. Pay attention to it and tell me, guys, what your favorite things are. Take a couple notes, and we'll review exactly.
Broke. Well, that's not good.
Oh, I'll get this. See if we can make this thing get full screen and actually work. All right, doesn't look like it's going to cooperate. So what we're going to do is we're going to come here to a different location and show you guys this video. If all this will work with me. Here we go. Oh. Here we go. All right. Oh. What is? This is a bunch of craziness. Apologize, guys, for my technical difficulties. I'm not sure why I'm having all these technical difficulties. We might just, oh, here we go. We're right here. I want to share with you guys just this quick 2-minute video right here. Slideshow.
Seriously, though, this is where millions and millions of people are headed if something doesn't change now. And that's why we created the private reserve account, a simple way for main...
One real quick second, guys. I apologize for my technical difficulties. I'm not sure why.
Imagine creating some less with stuff to do.
There we go. All right. I apologize, guys. I'm not sure whether it's me that's lagging or the internet or whatever it is, but we're going to get going with this right here. So, all right, here we go. Now I can share my screen. All right, share my screen. And Richard, is my screen lagging and you guys can't see me?
Yep, I can still see you. Screen is lagging though.
All right, if this doesn't work, then we'll just have a conversation, guys, and I'll just walk you through this.
Here, you want
This is not going to work for us. All right, Richard, you got a screen shared?
Can you hear it?
Okay, perfect. Hang on.
Hang on. There's a glitch on sound over here. Let me share your sound back.
Is this the 2-minute video?
What? Yeah. Wait.
Hold on. I think I got this.
Okay.
Share. There we go. All right, so here we go. You guys can see my screen now?
Yes. Sharing. See it.
Okay, perfect. Let me go ahead and make sure that we got the audio that's shared. Share screen and share my audio. Okay, share. All right, here we go. This is a 2-minute video about becoming your own bank, guys. So pay attention to it and tell me what your favorite features are at the end, okay?
Yep.
Old. Broke. Well, that's not good. Seriously, though, this is where millions and millions of people are headed if something doesn't change now. And that's why at Count Choice Financial, we created the private reserve account, a simple way for mainstream Americans to secure their retirement, protect their loved ones, and fund their dreams along the way. Here's how it works. Imagine creating your own banking alternative. And not just some ordinary bank, but the ultimate bank. Think about that for a minute. If it's your bank, what benefits would you give yourself? It would be a bank where your savings account actually grows by being linked to stock market gains so you can benefit from those big rallies. And as your money grows, the gains are locked in, so no more of those scary drops. That's a win-win. You'd be able to access the growing value of your account anytime you want for any reason you have. No taxes, no qualifications, no questions asked. After all, it's your money. Oh, did we mention no taxes? And since it is your bank, you'd be earning the interest on the money you borrow from yourself while you pay yourself back. What? Let's keep going. You would have no early withdrawal penalties, unlimited contributions, and a college planning fund with no restrictions. When properly structured, your bank could pay off your mortgage in half the time, could provide living benefits for critical and terminal illness. And if something ever happened to you, your ultimate bank would be transferable to your heirs tax-free. Seems impossible, right? Nope, you just didn't know that the wealthy have been doing this for years. Now you're wondering, so why doesn't everyone open a private reserve account? Exactly. The real question is, why don't you? Contact your account choice.
All right, guys. So we talked a little bit about this bank and what it can be able to do for you. But what I want to just kind of recap on, let's see if it'll work with me. What we want to recap on are some of the highlights of what we get in there. We're able to put our money in a place where it's able to make money when the market's up. It's guaranteed to never lose money when the market's down. You can access your money tax-free at any age. That's critical because I know many of us are entrepreneurs and we don't want to wait till we're 59 and a half to be able to touch our money. And we don't have to using the private reserve account. So we can be able to access that money at 35, 45, 55 if we want to access that money. And we can do it tax-free. One of the big things you've heard us talk a lot about, right? Tax-free is important. This is one of the big strategies we use to be able to make all of our strategies to make our clients tax-free in retirement. Okay, here's where we're having all our issues. All right, to have all that money be tax-free for us. So what we're going to do is see if we can relaunch that and talk about a little bit more about the private reserve account. We'll just stop this for now, and we'll just have a conversation about the private reserve account looks like, because for whatever reason, we're having some techniques. So again, private reserve account. It's a place where we can put our money, where it makes money when the market's up, but it never loses money when the market's down. We can access it tax-free at any age. We're able to pull that money out, and here's the big one, continue to earn interest on it. Because we think about the banks, right now we put our money in the banks, and they pay us nothing percent, and the banks then give away all that money, right? They don't keep it in the vault. Has anybody on here ever attempted to go out and get a $10,000 or $15,000 withdrawal in cash from their bank account? Anyone?
Yep, I have. It's actually one of those surprising processes. I remember when I was going to buy my first rental property. Can you hear me okay, Eric? Are you frozen or is it just me?
I can hear you now. I think I'm freezing up. It's doing something, but I can hear you now.
But it was one of those things where I'd accrued my investment for down payment on the property in my credit union in Texas. But then when it was time to buy the house, get ready for closing, I transferred the money to local bank. I won't tell anybody their name, but their initials are Wells Fargo. And so I went to Wells Fargo. I said, I need a cashier's check for $10,000. I just put the money in the account. They said, well, does anybody here know you? So I actually had to wait an extra day to close while they verified the funds because it was an instant transfer.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy that you didn't even try and take the money out in cash. You were trying to do the close. What's kind of crazy is if you walk into a bank and ask them for $15,000 cash, like, I would like you to hand me a stack of $100 bills for 15 grand. The bank will tell you they don't have it.
Wow.
You have to schedule an appointment to come back to get that much cash because they don't keep it on hand. So all those bank heist movies we see where they go in and rob the bank and it's got those giant pallets of $100 bills, those don't exist. The banks don't keep money in the vault because the bank doesn't make them any money. That vault, they're not working the money. They take our money and they give our money away. But what's crazy is the bank can give our money away, but when you all go check your bank accounts, it still says your money is there, doesn't it?
It does.
Wouldn't it be nice if you could take your money, take it out of your account, go spend it and use it and invest it, and yet somehow have your account still say your money's in it? That is what we can do with the private reserve account. Now, in order to qualify to be able to use the private reserve account, what we have to be able to do is we actually keep the IRS happy. Now, there's very certain and specific IRS guidelines that govern the private reserve account that are different than any other qualified account, IRAs, 401ks, and all these other things. And when you truly understand those IRS guidelines, we can get the money in there. Now, there are some rules and regulations, right? We can't just put unlimited funds in all in a single year. Well, we actually can, but based on those IRS guidelines, it's not the best. So some of the things that people don't always talk about are some of the cons, because if everything's all good and sunshine, why isn't everybody doing it? The two cons that we have to the private reserve account is that it takes, well, the biggest con is that it takes a little time to spool up. When I say a little time, we're talking 3 or 4 years. The money you put in is not immediately liquid the first year. It takes a little bit of time for that to become liquid. And that's why it's so important that we have that emergency fund. because it's not going to be there that first year, right? In years 2, 3, 4, and 5, more and more of that money becomes liquid and available. It also requires much more commitment and discipline than some other investments. Some other investments is you can throw $50 at it and then walk away and never do anything again. The private reserve account requires a little bit of consistent investment over time for at least a couple of years, or else some lump sums of money. We're talking, you know, $10, $15, $20,000 lump sums of money, and it's all dependent upon your individual situation and how those IRS guidelines fit. So we're not going to be able to get into, apparently, I'm not sure what it is, why, whether it's my internet connection or what it all is. Everybody using Zooms these days has changed the way the internet runs for me. But what we're going to do is talk a little bit about how we can use this for ourselves, guys. What it's really all about is just, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to see if this thing will work for me. Maybe if I kill my camera, I'll use up less bandwidth, because I'd like you guys to see my screen more than my face. So let me see if that'll work for us. While I share this, because I want to talk about the private reserve account, and I really want to end with land. We have a few more minutes here that I want to talk. And then I'd love to even be able to let you guys ask some generalized questions. Now, here's the thing, guys. There's some questions that I can answer in a generalized format with 50 people on a call. And there's other questions that I'm going to say, you know what, that sounds like an individual conversation that we need to have in a one-on-one conversation. And so those are some of the things that we can definitely talk about and kind of go through all of that. So I'm going to, let's see here, as this is loading. All right, I got some loading on my end. It appears to be my computer. We'll see what's all going on with this. What I want to do, guys, is just talk. Oh, I think it just did it. Something, not sure. All right. So the private reserve account, guys, let me talk to you about what it takes to qualify and originally be ready for it. Because it's not even just about having some money. It's about having that financial house in order. The first thing we're going to talk to you when you schedule that WealthMax consultation is we're going to ask you, what is your income? What are your expenses, and how much is left over a month? And when you give us that number, we're going to ask you later, how much is in your bank account? And if you're saving $1,000 a month and you got no money in your bank account, I'm going to ask you, well, where are you saving this $1,000 a month, right? We need to be able to make sure that we understand what is the financial situation that you have. Where is your money? We're going to take a look at your debt and say, hey, look, you're being somebody else's investment to the tune of 29%, right? 29% a month you're paying an interest to to this credit card company. And we want to make sure that you don't have to do that anymore. All right, here we go, guys. Here we go right here, and now I can share my screen. Okay, share. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yep, in there.
You can?
Yep.
Perfect, okay. So we're gonna skip past all this other stuff that we did and just want to talk about brief things. Skip past this, skip past this. Talking about the bank. We already talked about the bank. They pay us nothing. We give them, they use all our money to make money for other people. Then if we want their money, we got to qualify to borrow it, pay the bank interest. The bank sets the loan terms, and ultimately that wallet dollar serves one purpose. Buys us a house, a car, or a purse, or a pizza, or whatever we're buying on that credit card. The private reserve account allows us to put our money in a place where it makes money when the market's up, never lose it when it's down, never have to qualify to borrow. We can earn interest on our borrowed money, just like we would talk about. You can take the money out and continue to earn interest on it, just like the banks. You get to set the loan terms. If you want to pay yourself back, or if you don't want to pay yourself back, and if you do, when, and how much, and how quickly. It's tax-free at any age, and now your $1 can become an emergency fund. In 2 or 3 years, you're going to have enough money in there that it can become an emergency fund. It's liquid and accessible when you need to get that money. You can pull it out and continue to earn interest on it. So it's a retirement account, a lending alternative, and a lot of other things. We're going to skip past this. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of these advantages, right? Tax-deferred growth, market-linked returns, unlimited contributions as long as we follow those IRS guidelines, no early withdrawal penalties, loan and lending alternatives, college plannings, pay off your house more quickly. I was working with somebody this week who was paying an extra $500 a month to their house. And I talked to them like, look, like they talked about, a house is an asset. We often sold our largest asset, but you have to live somewhere. So unless you plan on selling your house and moving into something smaller, your house will never become an asset because you're always going to have to live in it, right? So this is where we want to talk about one of the biggest myths in investing. right? We're all out there, and even if we're trying to educate ourselves, we've heard about these guys on the TV and the radio who tell us how to invest wisely, that if you just use your 401k and you invest in some good growth stock mutual funds and you invest in this stock market stuff, over time, the market averages 8, 10, 12% a year, and you're going to make this great pile of money, and you're going to have all this money. They put it in a calculator, and they say, if you just save, starting when you're 20, $200 a month, you're going to have $4 million when you retire if you just invest that money in the stock market. So we've all heard things like that. The problem is they always focus on averages, and averages are not real. Let me explain what I mean. The way we find an average is very, very simple. You add up all these numbers. So do the math with me. Minus 50 plus 50 is equal to 0. Plus 50 minus 30 is equal to 20. To get the average, we divide by 4. That gives us 5. So if we take the 100 grand at the top of the screen, we average 5% a year for 4 years, you're going to end up with 121 grand after 4 years. This math is simple. It makes sense. You can get out your calculator and my math. It'll come out exactly right every single time you do it. And this is how all these financial gurus do math. The problem is that this is not what really happens. Because take a look what happens when you invest a little bit more slowly. You have 100 grand, you lose 50%, you got 50 grand left. Now the very next year you make 50% back, but you're doing it on half as much money. Half of 50 is only 25. So you started with 100, you ended with 75. Does that sound like 0% to anybody here, or is that negative?
That's negative.
That's negative.
Lost money. But why? Minus 50 plus 50, that's a 0% average. We've done that math. You keep this going, you end up with $21,000 less than you started with, not $21,000 more. And yet some dude in a suit's going to try and convince you you average 5%.
Yep.
This is the problem with this. And I'm not going to go through all the math on this next slide. I'm just going to show it to you. Right? This is the S&P 500, what most of the TV guys talk about on the TV and radio about the stock market. This is 11 years called the lost decade, 2000 to 2010. We had the dot-com bubble burst in 2008. The average over that 11 years is there at the bottom, 1.95%. Did not even keep up with inflation, right? This is what most people did for 11 years. And we're all been told the most important thing we have is time, right? You should, if you can invest younger, earlier, or whatever it is, you'll do better. These people could have invested 10 years earlier, and they started in the same place because they didn't make anything in 10 years. They lost 10 years of their lives with making no dollars. If they had $500,000 sitting in a bank account earning 1.95 a year, they'd get 618 grand. But people don't put their money in the bank. They put it in the market. So instead, they lost it, made it back, lost it, made it back. They had 520 instead of 618, and they got the exact same average. Those green line and the red line have the exact same average. This is the problem with the guys on the TV and radio who tell you, you're going to average 12% a year and you're going to have this big pile of money. Unless you know someplace that guarantees you 12% every single year with no fluctuation, you're going to end up with a very different pile of money than the ones they're putting into their calculators. This is the problem. And that's why with the private reserve account, our biggest focus is to simply not lose money. Been around for over 25 years, the ability to not lose this money, but you won't hear about it at Edward Jones, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, or any of the big financial houses because they're busy selling this exact red line to everyone. That's their financial model. The red line is the best thing ever since sliced bread, and everyone should own it. And by the way, if you don't have very much money, you aren't even going to get anybody to help you. You're going to get a 1-800 number with a guy who's not even allowed to give you advice, who can only do exactly what you tell him. But what if we could simply not lose money? What if we could make some of the ups, but take none of the downs? We don't get all the ups. 2003, we don't get 27%. We only get 12%, half of that, let's say. That's the most we can make in a year. By simply not going backwards, we end up with much more money because we don't ever have to spend time making back money we used to have, right? This is an asset. But what happens if your asset devalues? You have less assets. We want to make sure our assets never go backwards. Our assets never go down. That green line doesn't go down. Now, it doesn't go up as much during the up years, but since we're not spending 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years getting back to where we started, we don't have to worry about it because immediately as soon as the market goes up, we're instantly able to start making money. And when it crashes, we're locked in and we start making money immediately the next year. This is how the private reserve account is able to make money, guys. And it's guaranteed to be able to do this by some of the largest insurance companies in the world that they're insured just like the banks are. So these cannot lose money, but we can make money when the stock market's up. And we're able to even access this money, take it out, and use it to buy things like real estate, cars, college, retirement, or whatever else it is you want to be able to do tax-free. What I really want to go ahead, though, guys, do is take a little shift here. We've talked a lot about the private reserve account, but I want to talk about another investment of the wealthy. Besides maximizing your tax strategies to pay the least taxes possible, which is the number one thing everybody yells about the 1% for, they're not paying their fair share in taxes, right? Warren Buffett has complained more than once that he pays less in taxes than his secretary. Why? Because all of Warren Buffett's income is investment income, which is capital gains at 15%, whereas secretary has to pay earned income, which is 28, 30, 35+% in taxes. Wow. So getting the wealthy understand how to use these tax strategies. But the one other thing all the wealthy do that no one seems to talk to the rest of us about is real estate. Real estate is something that when you think about the truly wealthy, the Trumps, the Oprahs, the Arnold Schwarzeneggers, the incredibly wealthy of this country, they all own real estate. If it works for them, why wouldn't it work for us? And so why is it that financial advisors and 401k companies are never talking about real estate as part of that investment portfolio, right? Never mentioning that there's an opportunity to do that. So what we want to be able to do is focus on how that real estate can become part of your portfolio, just the same percentage of it as it is for them. Because many people aren't aware that we're actually able to use our IRAs and 401ks to own real estate. So what I want to do is talk about that. Now there's multiple types of real estate. There is cash flow real estate, and then there's equity real estate, where it's a long-term buy and hold to earn equity versus cash flow. And both of those have an incredible opportunity. And a lot of people get really hung up on rental properties, but who on here knows anybody who's had a bad rental property experience?
I do.
Right? I know a lot of people who've been landlords and they're sick and tired of being landlords. They're done being landlords and they no longer want to play that game. They love the idea of real estate. They actually love the idea of rentals if it wasn't for those crappy things called tenants, right? Those tenants tend to get in the way and really create problems for them because they're the headaches, right? They're the things who break things that we have to keep in place and do all those other things. And so what we really want to talk about is this land banking, because what we wanted to be able to do was bring an equity-based asset that's turnkey, that's simple, that you don't have to worry about. Because as fantastic as rental properties are, they are not for everyone. They are not a passive investment. Even with a property manager, you must pay attention to them and take care of them. Now, don't get me wrong. They are fantastic, and I love rental properties. I have some, you know, and as well do many of my clients. But you have to understand how they work. The other thing is that in IRAs and 401ks, the IRS has very, very specific rules about how IRAs and 401ks can be used. And if you're under the age of 60, cash flow properties don't work so well in an IRA or 401k as they would outside of that. But that's where land banking comes in, because when you think about land, that is actually where all the value of property is. You think about the areas where you live. You think about right in the middle of your town where those skyscrapers are. Don't get me wrong, those buildings are incredibly expensive, but can you imagine buying an acre of property in the middle of town? An acre of property. I actually have a statistic I saw on New York. Central Park, an incredibly massive park in the middle of New York, right in the middle of one of the wealthiest, highest cost real estate areas in the country and even in the world. It's estimated that the real estate value of Central Park is more than $1 trillion. That if you could buy that property for real estate development, that it would be worth $1 trillion to purchase and develop. And it's just the dirt. You'd have to pay for all the buildings and everything to go up on that. That's because that value is the location, which you can never change. That is the true asset. The houses, those depreciate. They burn down, they deteriorate, they have to be upkept and maintained. But the real estate, that's where the real value is. And that's why we brought this land banking to people, to be able to show them how to take money they already have in IRAs and 401ks and own real estate. Because have you ever said to yourself, when you've looked at things around your town, around your community, maybe where you grew up, man, if I'd have known back then what I know now, life would be different today, right? Probably saw an area just like this around where you were, where you grew up, maybe in the city you're in now, where 10, 15 years ago, it was just dirt. And then suddenly it exploded into something like this, and you drove past it as the fences went up and the construction happened, and now you don't even recognize it. And you're saying, man, if I'd have just, I knew I should have bought that land. You probably said it yourself, I wish I would have, coulda, shoulda, woulda, bought that because I know this was going to make money. Well, that's what we want to be able to share with you guys. That's the opportunity that we're bringing to show people how to take real estate as one small piece of their portfolio. Not all of it, but a little piece of it, to add true asset diversification. We've all heard about this fancy word, be diversified, right? Don't keep all your eggs in one basket. That way, if you drop one basket, all your eggs don't break. And yet, so many financial advisors and 401ks and people say, oh, I'm diversified. I have 5 mutual funds. I've got stocks and bonds and mutual funds. But what's funny is if the stock market went down like COVID, every single one of those investments went down at the exact same time. And as it climbed back up, they all went up at the exact same time. That's like having 5 baskets, but keeping them all in the same hand. Having a real asset that's diversified, having its own reasons for going up and down in value, not related to the stock market, not even related to the dollar, a hard asset that's not imaginary, that's not going to go anywhere. That's a great protection. And having equity day one, 20 to 40% below market. If you knew you could buy your neighbor's house for 20 to 40% less than it's worth, how many of you would want to go buy their house? All of us, right? That's what we're bringing, equity day one. And it's what the millionaires are doing. Now, land banking, it's buying that land in the growth path of a major metropolitan center, waiting for 7 to 10 years and selling it to the developers for significantly more than we bought it for. It's a 7 to 10 year hold is what we tell you. Now, often it sells faster, but if you don't have 7 to 10 years, you don't belong in this land, because here's the truth. Land's not liquid. You can't take a shovel full of it to Walmart to pay your bills. It's not easy to just up and get out because it's real estate. We have to wait for the right buyer to come along. But it's been what the Walmart, McDonald's, and many other corporations have been doing for a long, long time. They're buying that land in advance of building their stores, waiting for the population to move in, and then building. Walmart is the best known for this. They secretly buy their land under shell corporations and whatever else, because if they came in and said Walmart's buying land here, everyone would be jumping all over it because they know that Walmart's done their research and knows where people are going to be. This is actually the area we focus in. A lot of people ask me, well, what about my area? I know this great area in Georgia I hear a lot about. Texas has got some great things. North Dakota, there's some things happening in North Carolina and Florida, and there is. Do not get me wrong. There is growth all over this great country. But what we wanted to look for was the area with the most growth, the highest return, the longest and most stable track record. And so the research is so critically important. And the most basic principle of all economics is that of supply and demand. The less supply there is and the more demand there is, the more cost there is in something. So you take a look at this 60-mile circle. It's kind of a crazy thing. This is the 15th largest economy in the world, second in the US. There's 19.5 million people that live in that circle, with a third of it over water. And the US Census Bureau is expecting another 1.9 million net move-ins. That means even with all the move-outs, we're expecting almost 2 million more people to move into this area over the next 10 years. Now, I live out here in Arizona. There's some great growth here. I've seen some great growth in Nevada and everything else around me. But look at that statistic along the bottom. There's more people living in that circle than Oregon, Nevada, Arizona, Idaho, Utah, Montana, Wyoming, New Mexico combined. That's why California real estate is so expensive. Limited supply, massive demand. As a matter of fact, that supply is so limited because it's built out to the oceans and to the mountains. There's literally no room left for building growth and expansion except for one area just north of this area called Palmdale and Lancaster. It's a growing area that has hundreds of thousands of people that are living in it and commuting every single day to the heart of LA. It's the last area within a commutable distance to LA. Currently, 72,000 people commute from Palmdale and Lancaster to Los Angeles every single day. It's a 50-minute commute, which by Los Angeles standards is very short. But there's also 25,000 people that daily commute from Los Angeles up to Lancaster because it is an aerospace and engineering capital and mecca. Richard, they'd probably want you to go out there. Have you gotten any offers to move out to Palmdale?
Trying to trick me.
Right? There's a lot of people. I mean, this is a huge aerospace building area. We've got Northrop Grumman, and we'll talk a lot about these other people, but they're hiring people like crazy to come move out here because there's so much growth that's happening here. This right here is showing you some of our parcels. As you can see, our parcels right there in the middle of the screen are in the middle of all this growth. They're not in the middle of nowhere. they're right in the heart of things, right off that major freeway, right next to a Costco, Walmart, 24-hour fitness. Take a look at this courthouse. So there's a couple buildings here. Take a look at this. This is a Kaiser Permanente. This right here, see how it's all dirt around it? There doesn't seem to be a lot around it. It's a $200 million build. That's all solar glass across the front. It's got solar panels and wind all across the top. This is Kaiser Permanente's, the health insurance company's world headquarters. They moved it here. Well, even more incredible than this, I want to go back here for a second. Look at all the dirt around it. This giant dirt square behind it. This is already all purchased and under development. They're building a 17-acre world-class medical facility that's going to have cancer research, heart, cardiac, thoracic, basically every type of specialty you can have in this area, in a huge, massive complex that covers this entire square, and it's already under construction. What's that going to generate? More jobs, and high-paying jobs, which generates more growth and more people moving into the area. Here's another one, the Antelope Valley Courthouse, right there. Take a look at all the dirt around that. There's not a lot of growth around this. But look at this courthouse. It's already built, fully constructed right here, $250 million to build this, built by the county, which does not go quickly. It took 10 years of planning to be able to build this, and it's fully constructed. When you think about the courthouse, where is the courthouse in your town? The courthouse is on Main Street. It's surrounded by what? Banks, attorneys, buildings, growth, restaurants to serve those people, business parks, commercial strips. All those types of things are built all around this because this is the heart of the city. And you take a look at that again, look at the dirt that's around it. This is not just randomly placed here. There's a lot of planning that goes in here. One of the reasons why you see so much dirt around here, this little square right next to it, this is actually owned entirely by Chinese investors that are unwilling to sell this property for 20 years. They own it. They say, we want it for our grandkids. So they're literally just going to sit on this property and not sell it to anyone for any price for 20 years because they know that by that time, all of this area will be completely built out and this property will be worth, millions of dollars because there's no place else for people to build and grow and develop. And that's what they're looking to do in this area. These are the types of areas that we purchase in. Right here, you can see the airport. We buy all right around this airport and right along this freeway where we can get great access. So people we track, we already talked about Walmart. Walmart already has 6 stores in the area, meaning they're expecting 1.5 million people to be in this area. Today, there's only 600,000. When I got started with this company back in 2010, there were only 150,000 people living in the Antelope Valley. So between 2010 and 2020, it's gone from 150 to 600,000 people. And as you can see, there's, Petco's and Ross and Lowe's and Chili's and Red Lobsters. This is not the middle of nowhere. These are areas that have massive growth, and these are companies that have done their research to make sure the population is there to support them. Talking a little bit more about, smart people, Warren Buffett, we mentioned him earlier. He's got over $2 billion invested out here in the world's largest solar farm and an electric bus company. Talk a little bit more about some of these things. Again, all the green and solar energy out here, it's a massive growth industry. We have, Teslas out here. We've got a lot of green energy going on out in this area, Solar City, and everything else is growing, building, and hiring jobs out here. Transportation, there's the regional airport that just got a brand new terminal being built. They've approved 400 commuter flights daily. They're making an extension of LAX to be an international airport because LAX is fully impacted and they need some more room for more people to be able to fly in. The high-speed rail, for years people were concerned this wouldn't happen. It's under construction. As a matter of fact, many portions of it are fully constructed. That down there, this is called the Arctic. It's $180 million to build. It's the final stop of that high-speed rail, and it's been fully constructed for several years, just waiting for the high-speed rail to come in. This is another second high-speed rail that goes from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, right? And it's being built by Richard Branson. It's already under construction this year, set to be complete in 2023. So it's already being built in construction. It's been over 10 years in planning and everything else, zoning and everything to go right along with the new highway in the area. And it's now being under construction right now, allowing people to go from Palmdale to Vegas and Los Angeles to Vegas in about an hour, hour and a half, which is, again, going to be great for tourism. Vegas wants this train so badly because it's going to bring a lot of people there. We already talked about the aerospace. Northrop Grumman creating 6,000 new jobs because of their new opportunities and new bombers coming into here. Guys, I could go on and on about all this, but what I really want to be able to do is just let you guys know, again, the whole purpose of what WealthMax is to do is to bring you tools. We work with all the 401ks, mutual funds, and IRAs that everyone is used to, but we also bring new tools that you can't find, can't hear about anywhere else. But like Richard talked about, the biggest part of this is a plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stop sharing my video, and or stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to bring back my video. And I want to go ahead and kind of turn it back to Richard for a second. But what I want to be able to do is, guys, reiterate, how do I know I'm ready? When am I ready for WealthMax? The first thing you want to make sure that you've done is you've completed the other steps of MWR. You've put in for your instant pay raise. You've already put in for your credit max. You've already done your debt, your DFL sheet where you got your debts and everything else. And you've already gotten that cash flow sheet together. You know what your income is. Ideally, you have a written budget when you call me and say, I've already done it. I know where my money's going out. I know how much extra money I have. I've got a little bit of an emergency fund, and I've got my debt on the run. Now, if you already have IRAs and 401ks that are significant, or we're within like 2 years of retirement, like Evelyn mentioned, or just a couple of years of retirement, right? We can talk about it, say, look, how can we maximize the things that you have and make the best of them? But make sure that when you get on that call or you schedule that call, that you're ready, that you've got your things in order, you've got that house in order, and you're good to go. Richard, I want to go ahead and turn it back over to you because I know we're right at the hour mark now.
Yep. Well, I appreciate the time. Did everybody get good value out of the conversation with Eric? Just understanding better not only what we have our hands on, but what access we have to experts to help navigate the process and plan the experience.
Absolutely.
One thing I want to make sure that we close on is just this idea. You are a business, whether you're an MWR or not, and understanding your cash flow statement is one of the best things that you can do. And for those of you that don't have access to the portal, I do want you to see when you go to schedule a consultation, they do set up a place for you to understand what you've got, the net cash flow that you've got in, what you got out, your debts, your retirement, and your plan. And the thing that you have to make sure to put together is at least two goals. One goal is to make sure that your money is making enough income for the rest of your life, but beyond your life, that it's impacting the generations after you. Because they say a good man leaves a legacy for his kids and his kids' kids. Get your cash flow back, get it investing and creating cash flow so that we can build wealth at the next level. Because once your money is making more money than you do at work, that's when we've made wealth real for you. So with that, I want to thank you, Eric, once more for sharing your time and your expertise with us. Look forward to building and doing new and better things by putting our money to work, because money's a tool. It should do well.
Appreciate it, Richard.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Rick.
Great stuff, guys. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Richard.
Good night, guys.
Guys.
Thank
Good night.
you.